Howdy guys, Jimmy Song here. I wanted to talk in this video a little bit about what Silicon Valley gets wrong about crypto. Now, Silicon Valley has been the driver of a lot of innovation over the past 40 years. And, certainly a lot of high technology has come out of it. You can argue about how useful they've been, but certainly a lot of very valuable companies have come out of Silicon Valley. That said, I think a lot of the perspectives from Silicon Valley don't actually fit into this new crypto world. And this is something that I wanted to talk about in this video. What does Silicon Valley get wrong about crypto? Because what you see in a lot of these VC firms is that they are buying ICOs in a pre-sale. They're getting returns in 6 months instead of the typical 7, 8, 10 years, which is the lifetime of a normal fund and things like that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that because I think it's important not to just follow what Silicon Valley people are doing just because they've made money in a completely different industry. This is what's called the halo effect. Just because they invested in some tech companies, that doesn't mean that they're very good crypto investors, because they're two different things. Now, tech is a big part of crypto, don't get me wrong, and that is a big part. But there's also another part, and that's the economics of the coin and what new model it represents. So VC investors are used to getting equity, right? Like in order to, if you fund some company, say a computer manufacturer, you get some portion of their equity. So you get like 10% of their company, and you have a right to, or that represents like 10% of profits eventually, and so on. But with crypto and with tokens in particular, this doesn't necessarily happen. And it's a different model in that respect, because a lot of these tokens explicitly say they are not useful for anything. And that developers can stop working on it at any time. So there are no real investor rights there, and this is something that the firm that I work for, Blockchain Capital, is very, very cognizant of. They want to make sure that they get equity and not some token, because the token doesn't give the investor any rights. The fact that a lot of retail investors are going into these ICOs is what's kind of causing a lot of the hedge funds and VCs to go into it. They see it as either a very quick return or something about the wisdom of crowds or something like that. And that's both are very tenuous propositions. So first of all, if you are doing it for the short term, well, that music's going to stop. We have greed on both sides, greed on the part of the ICO issuers that are issuing ICOs for completely useless things. Most of them, even if they were investable things, 90% would fail, period, just because that's how startups are. It's extremely difficult to get a business off the ground. Believe me, I've been a part of a lot of startups. It's extremely hard to get a business off the ground and people using it, finding a product market fit, all that stuff. The other the other side of it are people that are greedy, that think it'll pump by 4x, and we've already seen a downtrend from that. You're not going to get a 4x return on an ICO anymore on the first day of trading. That just doesn't happen anymore, because people are getting wise to it. A lot of these assets are down like 90%. And it's going to continue, I think, to go down for that reason. It's people realize there's no real substance behind this stuff. It's just a token trading frenzy. It's a Ponzi scheme or worse in a lot of these cases. So, if you're a VC and you're doing it for the short term, well, that's not really within your mandate either. If you're a hedge fund, maybe, but with the VC firms in Silicon Valley, not a really good long-term viable strategy to rely on short-term returns of people being greedy. That's just not going to work. The other proposition is that long-term they'll make money, right? These ICOs and stuff. And again, I'm very, very skeptical, because things utilizing a blockchain are extremely difficult to change. And this is very clear from a lot of the experience that we've seen over the last 9 years. You can't just change the protocol. If it's supposedly decentralized, then you can't just change stuff because it's voluntary. You can't force people to change. Now you could do it in a more centralized context, and certainly Ethereum and a lot of these other ones have done that. But again, it's very difficult to change because how are you going to test it? And if there's any kind of flaw, people end up losing a lot of value, a lot of money. So it's not an industry that's prone to be able to pivot very easily, and that's the model that VCs have in mind. Is that okay? Well, you try something and you move on to something else, and so on. And this is why they invest in people for that reason, right? Like they always look at the history of the founders, how good they are, what they're like, and how hard they work, and how brilliant they are, and so on, because they know that if this particular idea doesn't work out, they can pivot and do something else and possibly make that work. And that's what most startups are like, honestly. You start with one idea and you end up in a completely different idea that happens to stick, that the market happens to want. It's extremely difficult for that reason. ICOs, altcoins, they don't have any of that going for them. So it's not really even about investing in the people anymore. It's about investing in the idea as well, and you have to be convinced that it's viable 10 years from now. So, a lot of these VCs, they're sort of going on the old world model. You have to think in a new world model. Like, what are some businesses? And the new world model doesn't really work for a lot of this stuff, right? Like, you're not going to have a coin for dentists that's actually going to work 10 years from now. There's already sound money in Bitcoin. So as a VC, you have to think a lot more about equity and like the traditional stuff that you already know, instead of trying to take advantage of this new kind of stuff. I know it's tempting. I know there's probably good returns that your colleagues got last year, but that's not a reason to necessarily dive in on this stuff. And the smart VCs actually kind of know this already, that the music has stopped for ICOs, that they really have to evaluate companies in a much better fashion. Anyway, hopefully that helps you. This song is done.